And I made a slip up and got a little bit on her head right there. You really want to try to avoid that. Hi, it's Kamon Reynolds. In this video, we're going to get into this hive and mark a queen, but I want to talk first about a pen that many beekeepers still don't know about. It is the competitive advantage pen for marking queens. Typically, when you get into bee catalogs or go to a store for beekeepers, you see Posca pens. That's how I pronounce it anyways. And I've used these for years, but they're really annoying because a lot of times they come off the queens before they should. Sometimes if you have a really nice hygienic hive, they'll only last a few weeks. And if you get a hive, maybe it's not good, that they'll sometimes last over a year or so, but I haven't been very pleased, and we've done a lot of tricks over the years to try to make it last longer, where we'll cage the queen for like 8 to 10 minutes before we release her back into the hive, and it doesn't matter, they still chip off the paint from these Posca pens. So I haven't been very pleased, but that's been the industry standard for longer than I've been into beekeeping, which is 20 years. And I've been marking queens for at least 15 of that with those pens. So when Bob Benny and Chris Warner recommended the competitive advantage pens, I wanted to try them out. Chris Warner raises thousands and thousands of queens, and so does Bob. And so if, these guys are using it, then it's something I definitely want to try. And I want to recommend it to you for multiple reasons, because it's made in the USA, which is always awesome. I think the price is as good as or better, and ultimately it lasts on the queens longer. I talked to Competitive Advantage, and they are non-toxic, and I'm going to leave a link down below and pinned in the description and in the comments where you can go and see these pens. I think you'll find they're the same price and maybe even a little bit cheaper. The pen that you want to use is a MPD-15, and they work wonderfully. So let's get into this hive and paint away. This year's color is yellow, and so we are going to mark the queen, and I just love the fact that these pens dry quickly and leave a dot that seems to just last and last and last. The longest queen I've ever had go is 4 seasons, and I need to be able to have paint that will last that time so we can breed for longevity in our lines of queens. We do not sell queens anymore except through nukes that we sell, but we do raise our own queens, and we only want the best. So we've smoked the bees down in this smaller colony right here that we made up in early April, and many of these queens will be right here in the center of the brood nest. You don't want to smoke the bees heavily when you're searching for the queen. And you can see we've thrown some old combs in here for them to repair and start using. So she's not on this frame right here. And I like working the hives from the side when looking for queens so that I can look at the adjacent frame over and see if the queen is on that, because queens don't like sunlight. This frame's got a good bit of weight in it. There is a little bit of eggs where there is not nectar. We have not fed these bees for several weeks, so all this food right in here is honey. And that is awesome. Best food in the world. If you're a bee, you eat honey all the time, and well, it's good for you, but might look like the Michelin Man after a while. Alright, this is a good frame right here. Lots of food in this ring, and we have a good bit of brood here. And we are going to just flip that on over, and I'm not seeing the queen. These bees are nice and calm on the combs. They look like they're starting to take off though. And that is good. Like this colony to be double deeps by the time the honey flow ends here in about a month or so. This one's a little bit behind the other 50 that we made up in this yard. Not seeing the queen on this frame. I have some people asking, like, hey, Kamon, do you ever get stung or anything like that? And absolutely. Good bit of pollen right there. We just added some of the combs to the left or right. They actually were getting a little bit bound in here, and that may be why I'm seeing the start of a few cells down in here. That one's dry. There's this one up in here. There's a bee in it. Probably just cleaning it out. Yeah, it's dry as well. So the queen's not on this frame. The next frame looks like it's a good frame of capped brood. The only advantage of when it's hot is that it's easy to move the frames because the propolis and the wax is very warm and not very hard and brittle. So that's a good pattern right there. Man, I love the look of this frame. This is great. You got a little bit of honey towards the top. You've got your band of bee bread packed in right there, which that's just pollen. You had that nice brood pattern right there. So yeah, this colony's going the right direction. And I am not seeing the queen on this frame either. I am seeing another cell or two. And that is also dry, and that's dry. So, you know, this time of the year when there's a lot of resources coming in, it is very natural for the bees to make extra cups like that. And some bees more than others. Certain types of carnies, and especially Russians, tend to keep more cells like that. This looks like a good frame that the queen could be on. I'm seeing young larvae, so perhaps not. Typically queens are trying to find a spot to lay, but there could be some brood emerging out on one side or the other. Well, queen's not on this frame. Well, of course, when we shoot a video, the queen's not in the first 2 or 3 frames. She's probably on the end frame, the furthest away from the beekeeper. It's just the way it goes sometimes. Oh, there she is right there. So you can see her in the center, and sure enough, as this brood is emerging, you can see there's one emerging right there. The queen is filling it up just as fast as she can. That girl has all this nutrition coming in. You can see these pollen baskets, and when there's a lot of diverse pollens coming in and there's enough energy in the form of honey or sugar syrup, she may need to lay as many as 1,500 eggs every day. So this is great, and we are going to nab her really quick, and then we are going to mark her. So I'm going to carefully lean this up against this adjacent hive. The queen is over here on this side. The only problem with this propolis and wax getting so hot is that it gets built up all over my fingers and can make it a little tricky. Now look down into here. Got some more extended cups. And that has, oh, there she goes on the other side. Of course you do. Okay, so let's get out our competitive advantage marker. You always want to make sure that these get shook up really good beforehand. And there she is, going down that crease. Queens do not like the heat of the sun or the sunlight. I've got her. Alright, and since I'm right-handed, I like to mark with my right hand because I can hold it a lot steadier. And I've kind of trained my left hand to grab the queens. Wait, I said that backwards. I said that backwards. I grab the queen with my right hand because I can be steadier with that. We don't care so much about squeezing the pin that hard, do we? But if you squeeze the queens hard enough, you could kill them, or they could pass out, which I have seen happen once or twice. Some queens are just like a little more delicate than others, and they will just pass out from that mean old giant picking them up and giving them a tattoo. And I made a slip up and got a little bit on her head right there. You really want to try to avoid that. We really try to avoid that right there, but that's just a tiny bit. Yeah, looks like we missed the eyes. Yeah, we're good. Just got a little bit of the hair up on top. You really got to be careful though. You don't want to get it on her compound eyes or any of those things, or her antennae if you can avoid it, because we don't want to block her production of any communication skills, her sight, any of those things. So we could put her in a queen cage and let this dry for a little bit, But honestly, these MPD-15 pins from Competitive Advantage dry really fast. That's a nice little mark right there. And just look at that extended abdomen right there. She is a whopper. And we're just going to let her get on this hive frame right here. You got to be careful. Queens will fly away on you. This one's too fat. She's going to try to. There she goes right down in there. And that was enough time to let it dry a little bit. Now with the Posca pins, I would have felt a little uncomfortable dropping that in already. They don't dry as quickly. But that right there is how we mark our queens. And now we are going to put this hive back together. You probably want to keep your veil on at all times, but you have to be really careful. Over the years, we have lost queens because they flew away, especially young queens and virgins. I don't like marking virgin queens unless I have them like in my truck cab or in a room or something where they can't fly off into the wild blue yonder. Queens that lay and have that swollen abdomen, they can't fly very good, but they still can glide and fly a little ways. One take off and fly over into some tall grass, 10 or so feet away, and it can be very hard to spot. So you have to be very careful. There's products like a queen muff, what they call it, and you can put the queen inside of there so they can't fly away from you. But you don't have to mark your queens, but if you're going to, I highly recommend this pin right here, because if we're going to go through all that effort, we want it to actually last. So I hope to see more of these in bee stores to replace the Posca pins, because I really like the quality and they're a lot better. So thanks for watching this video, and if you have any questions about anything, leave it below.